Hey, good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome into the Rocky Top Rewind. I'm Eric Kane alongside Brent Hubbs here on the Volquest YouTube channel. And of course, you can watch us and hang out with us all week long, every single day on the Journal's Quarters and at Volquest.com. The Rocky Top Rewind presented by the great people over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. They've been the proud presenting sponsor of the show for a couple years now. So really do appreciate their support and their love for Volquest. And really do appreciate those guys. And they can certainly help you. If you have a need, you can dial 423-245-4185 for a free consultation. Visit their website as well. It's Spivey King and Spivey LLP.com. All right, for the next hour, from 9 until 10 o'clock Eastern Time, we will take your questions. We'll talk about Tennessee's 45-24 defeat to Vanderbilt at Neyland Stadium on Saturday. What's next for this program? Staff changes, roster retention, signing day coming up. I mean, there's a lot to discuss here. Plus, what went wrong in Tennessee's 21-point defeat. First and foremost, Brent Hubbs, not the way that Tennessee obviously wanted to finish off the regular season. Vanderbilt's a good ball club this year. Anyone who says that you just never lose to Vanderbilt, I hear you, but this is a very good Vanderbilt team. But it's the way you lost. The way you lost, you just got punked in the second half. Tennessee was outgained considerably, 3 points. Not a good finish to that football game and a disappointing ending, and the third loss at Neyland Stadium this year.
I think that's the thing that stands out too is just the fact that you weren't a very good home football team against quality competition. And if you're going to be a playoff caliber team, you got to win your home games. You got to hold serve at home. I know Georgia lost one at home, but most of the teams that are in the playoffs have a clean home record. And I can't sit here and say that Oklahoma as an entire team is vastly more talented than Tennessee. They're better on defense, obviously. But that was not a game where I left there going, man, Tennessee's so far behind Oklahoma. The Georgia game, I didn't feel that way. I didn't. And I don't know that Vanderbilt's vastly more talented. They played a lot better football. They played their brand of football. They dictated everything in that game. They had control. Even in the first half, when it's 21-21 at the half, you felt like Tennessee was lucky to be at that point in the game, because if it weren't for two bad interceptions, Tennessee never stopped Vanderbilt, and a couple holding penalties. They didn't get any stops in the first half. Now, Redmond made a really good play on his pick. I shouldn't say bad interception there. That was a good play. But point being, they outplayed you in every facet of the game. And when you finish the season on that note, then you go into the offseason very differently. Fans' perspective is very different. There's no goodwill. There's no good feeling. And I think for Josh Heupel, it's not about the fans' feeling. It's about what does he feel in his program? What does his program need to do to be at the level everybody expects it to be at? And it expects it to be at better than getting outscored 24-3 in the second half of a tied football game against Vanderbilt to close out the regular season.
Yeah, again, it's not just a loss to Vanderbilt. You should never lose like that, especially on your home field. Long gone are the days and it was never about moral victories, and I don't think it was ever about that. But long gone are the days of, the roster just isn't where it needs to be, or they just don't have enough players, or this is a good roster. It's a really good roster, and you're going to lose games. That's football, right? You're not going to win every single one of them usually, but you can't just lose the way that you lost, especially in the second half. The middle eight, we talked about it a lot, since the end of the football game. Tennessee did not win the middle eight. Vanderbilt goes down there and scores a touchdown, a costly penalty that I want to get your thoughts on that here in just a second. Led to Vanderbilt staying on the football field. They scored a touchdown. They got the football in the second half, drove down the field 7 minutes, scored a touchdown. Tennessee goes 3 and out. They get the football, kick a field goal. It's a 10-point lead. And even there, it felt like it was over because there were just a couple minutes left in the third quarter. Tennessee barely had the ball. And it just felt like all the goodwill in the first half, where Tennessee did play, points and times pretty well in the first half, it just all evaporated. Gonna get to your questions. I've been starring them over here. We're gonna answer those here in just a second, but I do want to get your thoughts on that roughing the passer. And to me, that's the biggest play, the biggest call. That changed the game. It's not hard for me to see why the flag was thrown, but boy, it's tough. If you're Jalen McMurray, what can you do, man? I think that's a really, really tough penalty. He's not going to stop. You can't just stop. The way Pavia was in the air when he threw the ball, he came down, and then they made contact with his head. It's kind of he came down and made contact. It's not like he was spearing for his head. That's a tough play in my opinion, but the flag gave him a first down. They scored the next play, and that was the biggest play of the football game.
Yeah, I mean, watching it from afar, and I was on the other end because I was getting ready for halftime with Coach Heupel, so I wasn't standing like right there at the play at that point. Watching it live from afar, I didn't think it was a penalty. Watching it on replay, man, maybe by the letter of the law, but boy, that's a hard one to not just let go and just move on. I didn't love it, and even if I don't think if the quarterbacks have been reversed, and that happened to Tennessee, I don't know that I would have felt like that would have been a penalty on Vanderbilt either. I just didn't think that was egregious. I just didn't think it was a true roughing. And I know they're going to protect the quarterbacks. I thought Pavia sold it pretty well. And it probably looked, because he was in the air, it probably looked worse than what it was. But man, I just didn't. I didn't think that was a good deal at all. Here's my thing too. I mean, listen, that officiating, and I'm not going to complain about officiating in light of this game. This had nothing to do with the outcome of the game. Vanderbilt beat Tennessee thoroughly in every capacity. Okay, they did. I mean, Vanderbilt was pitching the whole game. Tennessee was catching. I mean, they were on skates to some degree. It felt like the entire game. Here's my soapbox right quick on the officiating part. I didn't like that call. They missed a bunch of holds, which, they weren't going to call one every play, but, they missed a bunch of holds, but they do that every game. But do you remember the play where they reviewed whether or not the ball was an incomplete pass or a lateral that Pavia threw out in the flat? And this would have been, I guess, maybe in the second half, third quarter, he threw a ball. And it wasn't a fumble that Tennessee recovered. It wasn't going to be a turnover. The question was, is it minus 5 yards or is it an incomplete pass? Basically, is what it boiled down to. So they go to the monitor and they rule that it's an incomplete pass, that it wasn't a lateral, which I don't think it was. I think that they got it right. But here's the thing. There wasn't a receiver out there. The player that was out there that was on a knee was an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So when you watch the replay, the official has to be going, well, that's intentional grounding, but I guess we didn't drop the flag, so we can't review that for intentional grounding. Why? Like, if the whole point is to get it right and you go to replay and you go, well, okay, it's an incomplete pass, but that's intentional grounding, drop the flag for intentional grounding or call it a fumble, one or the other. I mean, you can't to me, that can't be a normal incomplete pass and there not be an intentional grounding penalty when the only receiver in the area was an offensive lineman and he's not an eligible receiver and he's clearly not outside the tackle box and it clearly doesn't go past the line of scrimmage. All right, there's my soapbox. Let's get the questions. It drives me nuts. It just drives me nuts.
I starred a bunch of questions and I don't know where they went, but I'll just go ahead and get the ones I have
Here,
right
I got
now.
the one starred. I can do that. You ready?
Yeah,
Here,
let's do it.
I'll do it. Let's do some star ones. This is from Michael. I found Clark Lee's comments about prioritizing winning interesting. I feel like Heupel was like that the first couple of years, but has lost that edge and is worried about stats, snap counts, and other stuff. They went to the playoffs last year, guys. Let's be real honest here, okay? This is not like it's not like this is some 7-win team, 8-win team, and they've gone backwards from 22. They were a playoff team a year ago. I think to a degree, Josh Heupel's always worried about stats. I think he worried about stats in 21. That's why Hendon Hooker was running the option in a blowout game against Missouri. That's Eric's favorite, so I had to throw that one out there.
I hate that so much, yeah.
I think there's always been a degree about stats. I think part of the reason why sometimes he doesn't take his starters out early enough in the second half is he wants to get one more. I think when Cedric Tillman got hurt, they were trying to get him to 100 yards against Akron in that game. And these are all 21 and 22. So I think he's always worried about that. Do I think he coaches differently than he did early on? Yeah. I think he's trying to coach a little more maybe complimentary at times. I don't understand sort of when he's aggressive and not aggressive, like at the end of half. I know a lot of people were talking about not using the timeouts. Man, go back and review it, Eric. When does he use them? They gave up 17, 10, and 11, 3 consecutive plays. you use a timeout when you get them into second down. You don't use a timeout after another first down run. So
No.
I don't know that he really could have used them there Saturday night. But like, I didn't understand the end of the first half against Florida. Like, sometimes it's aggressive, sometimes it's not aggressive. That part I don't understand, but I don't think that he is not prioritizing winning for the purpose of making sure everybody gets a participation trophy and snap counts and stats and stuff like that.
No, I would agree with all that. I think last year he really learned and kind of evolved to call a game to complement your defense. I mean, let's be honest. There was nothing about Tennessee's offense last year that struck fear, through the air. Tennessee was going to run it a ton. Tennessee had a good running back. Tennessee had an offensive line that were all veterans, and they ran the football very well. But Tennessee had a defense that was elite, and Tennessee, won games by running the football, playing, good defense, and winning games that way, and that's fine. I think you evolve, and you got to the playoff that way last year, right? I think early on in his career, he had to call an aggressive game because you weren't making any stops. You didn't have any depth. I think kind of things change in that regard. This year's kind of different. Again, points and times he's been aggressive. Other times, like you mentioned with the Florida game, and again they're up 28-0, so that's not really the best example.
The Georgia game after the fumble, certainly,
yeah. I think moving forward, and there's a lot of what from here, coaching staff, what does he need to do, and we can talk about all that. I think he's got to have somebody. He's got to do a self scout. He needs to have one of those guys in a polo or somebody in game moving forward that does nothing but management, like clock management. Because we can nitpick this and debate, and there's people that take this side and this side, it's whatever. That's just not a strength of his. It hasn't been all year long. There's been several situations where he's not managed things well, and that's one of my biggest takeaways. Like, next year, hopefully he evolves and has someone that kind of help him with that, because I think that's a big time shortcoming. But to your point, yeah, I mean, he's absolutely prioritizing winning. It's just when you're losing, everything is scrutinized. I mean, again, when Alabama was losing, they were mad at the color of shirt that Kalen DeBoer was wearing. I mean, that's when you're losing, when you lose a game that you don't want to lose, things are just magnified like that. On that note, let's go to Jeremiah. Do you think Coach will make the changes that are needed? Teams like Ole Miss, Vandy, Texas Tech have shown that being aggressive with resources can bring immediate turnarounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be aggressive. I think you've got to go get some more dudes. I think you have to sit here and say to yourself, what do we need to do to have better players? Is it all just going out and more money for a roster? Where are we in our development of our players? How do we get a deeper roster, a more impactful roster? I don't think the answer is going to get 20 players in the portal every year. Part of that's got to be your development of your players. You have to recruit high school players at certain positions better than you have been recruiting them. But yeah, I mean, if he doesn't make the changes that are needed and he doesn't put a team out there that gives you a chance to go to the playoffs and is more competitive, then he's putting himself in the firing line. I mean, listen, you're in charge. You're making the most money, but you're in charge. You have to do everything you need to do. I mean, you have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I making all the decisions that need to be made when recruiting to transfer portal to staff, on-field staff, off-field staff, everything? Am I doing everything I can to make this program a championship caliber program, to be a team that could go in the playoffs and have a chance to win the whole thing? They were in the playoffs a year ago. They were. They did not play worth anything in that game a year ago at Ohio State. Now, Ohio State was on a heater. They went from losing to Michigan and turned it all around and were a great team all the way through the playoffs. So it's not completely just dysfunctionally broke, but yeah, I mean, I think you have to look at things and you have to evolve as you move forward. I mean, listen, this league's getting harder, Eric. 9 conference games. Everybody knows everybody. You just brought in an influx of new coaches. I mean, this league continues to change and evolve and is not getting any easier. So, you better be willing to make the necessary adjustments you need to make in your program.
Nashville 615 feels like many of the issues fans complain fall on deaf ears with Josh Heupel. Does Josh Heupel even see the issues, the quality of play and trajectory of the program? I think so. he read to me like at the podium yesterday. Now I missed the first couple of minutes because I was coming down for the press box, finishing things up. But it read to me like he was a guy that was just, well, he was frustrated. He was embarrassed because you got beat like that on your home field. Yeah, I mean, I think that he's fully aware of some of the shortcomings of his programs right now. It just kind of goes back to, again, what we're talking about. How are you going to change it? What steps can you take to take that next step?
Yeah, and let me say this. I mean, he wasn't making any changes today. Okay, so anybody who went to bed last night thinking they were going to wake up today and there was going to be some kind of big news coming out of Tennessee's program in regards to a staff change or anything like that, that wasn't happening today. Signing day is Wednesday. He will take his time here over the next in the coming days to do a deep dive in his program and go from there. But he was not going to wake up today and make a bunch of changes on anything. That was never going to happen. So anybody who thought that was going to happen, I just hate to inform you that was never going to be on the table. And
It's
never
FOMO though, Brant. You've got all these head coaching announcements today around the league, and you want to be involved.
Well, I mean, yeah, those people had to get a coach in place, but I mean,
because of signing day, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of head coaches today made a bunch of assistant changes around the country, and so I mean, a couple did, I'm sure, but I never expected any news today of any kind. We'll see what happens here as we move forward through the rest of this week after signing day and beyond.
Sam wants to know, are the Josh Heupel rumors to Penn State a real threat? I hope not.
I don't think so. I certainly don't. I don't have anybody telling me that they are on any side. I will throw this caveat out there. I mean, like I mean, I never thought Lane Kiffin was going to be a real candidate because he wasn't at USC until a couple of guys fell through, including Jack Del Rio deciding to stay in the NFL, and then it fell to Kiffin. I will say this. I don't have any idea where Penn State's search is. I'm not sure anybody knows where Penn State's search is. No. I mean, somebody told me earlier today they think the coach at BYU, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, that they think he may be the guy that they're close to a deal with. But, I mean, that doesn't seem like a great fit to me. I don't know exactly what Penn State is looking for. I don't know what their candidates are. I kind of thought Pat Fitzgerald might end up being a viable candidate there. He's going to land or has landed at Michigan State.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it doesn't feel like that. Josh Heupel worked in the program, on Tennessee all day today recruiting, and he used to be in the office all day tomorrow for Tennessee. It certainly doesn't feel like anything's there. But I mean, what is Penn State doing? Wednesday's signing day. They fired their coach a month and a half ago, it seems like. I mean, it's been 6 weeks, right? Something like that.
It's been forever, yeah.
You're not at the table with anybody today? I don't understand where that search is trying to go, which is why I say to Sam's question, I don't have anybody telling me he's a viable candidate there, but I also don't have any idea what direction that search is going. I don't think anybody has a feel for it.
Yeah, and again, I kind of it's flashbacks to just like a month and a half ago, and you get Tony Vitello chats to the Giants, and that one's a little bit different too because again, that one just felt so far out of left field, and it was nothing at first, and I was like, oh, there might be a little something there, and then it just kind of grows and grows and grows. So you never say never, obviously, but I don't think, and I don't want to speak for you, but I don't think any of that has legs right now, at least from anything I've been told.
It doesn't feel like it, but again, I don't know who Penn State's. I mean. Maybe the BYU guy is the top candidate. At one point, it felt like it was the guy from James Madison might be a top candidate. I don't know where they're going. I mean, the next person that tells me Marcus Freeman's a candidate for that job, I'm going to shake my head because why in the world would he leave Notre Dame to go to Penn State? That makes zero sense. But some of the Penn State folks believe there's a, quote, mystery candidate hanging out there. Who might that mystery candidate be? We'll see.
Let's go to Brian saying, did the offensive line regress after the first few games? I think, you just look at the game, you look at the stats. Yeah, I think it absolutely did. Now, the first few games were Syracuse, ETSU, UAB, Mississippi State, Arkansas. And then you got into the meat of their schedule. You played those, Georgia was in that first group as well. Then you played the Alabamas, the Oklahomas, Vanderbilt. Alabama and Oklahoma had a real good front sevens. You also had some injuries in there. David Sanders took a while to get in flux, and he was in there. And then Jesse Perry had some injuries. Wendell Moy had some injuries. They were kind of playing a little bit of musical chairs, the rest of the way. But, yeah, against ranked against some pretty good front sevens. I don't think Tennessee's offensive line performed as well. Now, I think it's a group, and we'll see what Lance Hurd decides to do, obviously, but it's a group that's largely expected to come back. Some young talent. Like I'm excited to have this group back next year for sure. But I think as the season went along, I mean, yeah, they allowed 4 sacks to Alabama, 4 sacks to Oklahoma, and 4 sacks to Vanderbilt. It absolutely regrets based on how it started.
Yep, didn't play well enough. Plain simple. Didn't block well enough. Didn't get enough. Now, part of that, throw tight ends in there for part of the protection. Throw the running backs in there as well. They did not have a lot of answers for those heavy front looks that Vanderbilt gave them Saturday night, where they had 8 in the box. Were they coming? Were they not coming? What were they doing? Type deal. And listen, Vanderbilt found something that they really liked, and they went to that well after Deshaun Bishop's 40-yard touchdown run or 35-yard touchdown run. I think he had less than 20 yards or maybe 22 yards rushing or something like that the rest of the game. I mean, they found something they liked in being able to diagnose and stop Tennessee's run game. And then obviously when Tennessee became really pass heavy, they just decided, hey, we're going to blitz you, and we're going to blitz all night. And if you beat us, we'll take our chances on that one. But we think we can get home more than we don't get home and force it out of your hands. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. I mean, their gamble paid off big time for them. Tennessee could not take advantage of them bringing extra bodies and having some man coverage on the back end.
Sam Smith wants to know when the last time a team averaged over 8 yards a carry against Tennessee. Did Derrick Henry or Todd Gurley back in the day, maybe 2013 Oregon? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I'm sure you don't either, but you'll have more context of this. But I got to say, man, I mean, what a disappointing effort defensively, but specifically the run. I mean, they gave up 70 more yards yesterday than they did in the worst game against Arkansas at 240 previously on the ground. Gave up 314 yards on the ground. As Sam points out, 8.5 yards per carry. I mean, that's atrocious. I mean, that is so bad. So do you have any context or a clue, like the last time that something like this happened against Tennessee?
The last time somebody rushed for as many yards as Diego Pavia rushed for against Tennessee was Missouri in 2023. That was a Missouri team. That game had 530 yards on 75 snaps. They averaged 7.1 yards per play, and they averaged 5 yards a carry. So to answer your question, it's not them.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and do some big time research on what that looked like. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I don't know right off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, they averaged, it wasn't just what they did on the ground. They averaged 9 yards per snap.
Yep.
I mean, they had 5 rushes for 70 yards on third down. On third down plays, they were 5 for 5 on 3rd and 4 yards or less. Half of their third down plays were 3rd and 4 or less. When Tennessee got them in 3rd and long, Eric, 3 times it was 9+. Tennessee got 3 stops. But they didn't get them in that one very often. They were anything less than 3rd and 9. Vanderbilt was 7 for 7 on 3rd downs. That's a bad day at the office.
It's a bad day at the office. Plus, they reached 1 3rd down on the second half opening drive, and that was the play before touchdown.
That was a 3rd and
11
1.
plays, 1 3rd down.
Yeah.
It's not good. Not good.
Nope.
They averaged 9.2 yards per play in the second half, 9 yards per play in the game. And again, it was Vanderbilt averaging 8.5 yards on the ground for the game. Pavia 8.3 rushing. Cedric Alexander, who had a really good game, 11.5 yards per rush, 10 carries.
Yeah, Tennessee didn't fit the run well. They didn't tackle well. They didn't get off blocks well enough. They took bad angles. They had bad fits at all 3 levels. There was nothing else good. There was nothing good to say about it.
Yeah, and you kind of just painted the picture right there that kind of answers this question. Seems like little to no preparation, game plan to contain Pavia, make him more one-dimensional, force him to pass to make someone else beat you. He kept slashing the defense. I think in terms of his runs and really Vanderbilt's runs overall, defensive line didn't hold gaps. Linebackers over pursued. Got cut. One of those touchdown runs from Alexander. I mean, your linebacker just got cut off and it was wide open. And then it was the bad angles. I mean, Colton Hood had a horrific angle on one long run down the sideline. Missed tackles. Tennessee missed 13 tackles in this football game. And it wasn't just one guy. I mean, it was a group effort, and it was just not a very good showing from Tennessee defending the run yesterday.
Nope, I had no answers. Diego Pavia did whatever he wanted to Tennessee. He told everybody all off season that's what he was going to do, and he came out there Saturday night and he did exactly what he told you he was going to do back in the off season. And he's going to tell you more and more in the coming weeks, I'm sure, that he did exactly what he told you he was going to do to you.
Yep, he backed it up. That is for sure. Let's see here. National Ball 615. Even if this year went well, we're going to have to double down on roster with 9-game schedule coming. Does Tennessee have the financial commitment to compete in 2026 and beyond? He doesn't mention portal, but I mean, Tennessee was not active in the portal last year. Now, roster retention is a real thing. It's going to be a real thing here in the month of December. But Tennessee's got to be aggressive in the portal.
They do. I mean, here's the thing. I mean, we don't even know what financial commitment is going to be required at this point. Right? I mean, are you talking you got to have a $30, $35 million, $40 million budget? I mean, what does that look like to have the financial commitment? Now, the team that beat you by 3 touchdowns last night spent probably half or a third of what you spent on your roster. So it's not just he who has the most money wins. You got to have dudes. You're going to have to pay money for dudes. You're going to have to get those dudes to play the right way. They're going to have to play a much better brand of football than we saw on Saturday night. You got to fix the defense. You got to fix the defense with talent. You got to fix your defensive development. You got to execute a defensive plan better, and your defensive plan probably needs to be better than what we saw. So it's not just, hey, we're going to throw more money into it, and that's the answer. That's part of the answer, okay? And I think Tennessee financially is making enough commitment to be at a level that can compete for championships. But it's what are you going to do with that? How do you develop it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you spend it? How do you use it? When you do spend it this way, is it the right things? I mean, look, they spent a bunch of money on this team that finished playing Saturday. Okay? And some of it never saw the field. Okay? Jermod McCoy, Ricky Gibson, Boo Carter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those guys never saw the light of day in the field. And so you have to have some good breaks. Some things have to go your way from an injury standpoint. But you got to make good decisions too. And then when you make those decisions, you can't just say, hey, we paid X for this guy. He's tailor-made, ready to play. You got to develop those guys. They've got to improve. They've got to grow and get better. And I think for a lot of fans, Eric, that's part of the frustration. You played Georgia so well. Okay. You play them so well and you give yourself a chance. And so you left there thinking, wait a minute, this is a really young football team. The head coach and every coach and staff member has said to a man in the preseason, there's no time to be young. Okay. Nobody's giving anybody time. So if you, as a young team, you played that well early in the year, you're thinking to yourself, what is this team going to look like in November?
Yeah.
They feel much better about going to Florida, even though you didn't know Florida was going to be bad at that point. Oklahoma coming to your place, Vanderbilt coming to your place. Hey, this team grows and gets better throughout the season. Man, where's Tennessee going to be on the back end of this thing? Okay. I mean, think about this. You're 4 weeks removed from playing Oklahoma and what was thought to be a stay alive in the playoff game if you win it. That's where Tennessee was. The bottom line is Tennessee did not come close to playing their best football in the month of November. And listen, they won at Florida. They won in the Swamp. They broke the streak. Give them all the credit in the world for that. I did on this show last Sunday night, okay? But they did not play their best football over the course of the final 4 games of the season when you look at Oklahoma, even New Mexico State, Florida, and Vanderbilt.
No, they didn't, and wrote about it a little bit today in the Sunday 4 Downs. I mean, Tennessee really didn't have anything to kind of hang their hat on in this football season in terms of wins. Only ranked team you beat, or only team with a winning record you beat this year was ETSU. 0-4 against ranked opponents.
Lost 3 at home.
Lost 3 at home. In those losses to ranked opponents, you had a scoreless quarter, at least one scoreless quarter in all those games. Just not a very good showing in terms of the beating up on the teams you should beat up on your roster, which Tennessee did. When I say beat up, they won the games at Arkansas, Mississippi State, and then Syracuse, some of those cupcake games, but not competing and winning. Not winning, they did compete, not winning those games against those ranked opponents like Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia. Had a chance to win at Georgia, like 17 chances. We know about the kick, but you had about 14 chances before the kick that you missed to win that game as well. We'll get a couple more here, but first let's get a word from some of our proud sponsors. We'll start with Spivey King and Spivey LLP because they have been so good to us, and we do appreciate them for being a part of the Rocky Top Rewind each and every year. So we'll be back, answer more of your questions. Matt Ray coming on to talk recruiting in about 15 minutes. So more will roll on here until 10 o'clock on the Rocky Top Rewind. Spivey LLP has been the proud presenting sponsor of the Rocky Top Rewind here for a couple of years now. Can't thank them enough for all what they do for Volquest.com for this show, and they can certainly help you if you ever have a need. Matthew A. Spivey, J. Matt King, Richard A. Spivey. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. T and trial lawyers. What they do is they specialize in criminal defense, family law, personal injury, divorce, custody, alimony, personal injuries such as car wrecks, sometimes accidents. Over 80 years of combined experience, Spivey King and Spivey LLP provides representation throughout state and federal courts in Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience. The practice has been in place for 43 years. This specific partnership since 2012, they have partners who are energized for today's modern legal demands. They practice primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, as well as Hawkins County, Washington County, and surrounding areas, but they can help you if you have that need. They practice primarily in Northeast Tennessee again, but the firm has won multiple awards, attorneys who have been rated by super lawyers in the Mid-South with real trial experience. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, need help with a divorce, help with custody of your children, or you've been accused of a crime, Spivey King and Spivey LLP, they can help you. For a free consultation, pick up the phone, dial this number, 423-245-4185. That is 423-245-4185. You can check them out online as well at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Again, the proud presenting sponsors of the Rocky Top Rewind. We could not do this show without them. They can help you if you have a need. Again, one more time, that is Spivey King and Spivey LLP, and check them out online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Also want to give a shout out to Game Time for being a part of the Rocky Top Rewind this football season. The app gives advantages back to the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps, because sometimes when we're searching for tickets for maybe these bowl games, maybe the college football playoffs, maybe a basketball game at the Food City Center, maybe a concert at the Food City Center, it's events as well, not just sporting events, not just sporting games, but it's also events like concerts and all that. Game Time can give the advantage back to the fans, because sometimes just hunting down those tickets and trying to figure out that process is more work than like the game going on itself. Plus, the fees are always included. What you see is what you pay for. 100% authentic tickets, the Game Time guarantee. That's what that means. They got the most flexible and best customer service policy in all of the ticketing industry. They got exclusive discounts like zone deals, where you choose the section, Game Time chooses the seats, and you save a whole lot of money. Zone deals, they've got seat views, so you know exactly what you're paying for. We went to the Smokies game this summer, and we did that, so I knew exactly, because it's new ballpark, first time I ever went, and I knew exactly kind of where we were sitting so I could be close to the action. I really enjoyed that aspect of Game Time, and that's just one of the many perks you can enjoy as well. Take the guesswork out of buying college football, basketball tickets this season with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, put in the redeem code ON3 for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account. Put in the redeem code ON3 for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today.
Welcome back into the Rocky Top Rewind. We'll get to Matt Ray in a few minutes to talk a little recruiting, but we'll hit a little rapid fire questions here. And we'll start with, let's go
with
to
this one.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was actually getting ready to say that one.
I think this is really interesting, and I was going to ask your take on this. Alex Gulch, congratulations to him. That's awesome. He's going to be the head coach at Auburn, not Arkansas, not Ole Miss, but Auburn. And he's already, I saw a report earlier tonight that he's already bringing Cody Burns back, who was on Tennessee's initial staff with Heupel. former wide receiver quarterback at Auburn. He was here for 1 year, went to the Saints. I'm not sure where he is now.
He's been with Golish. He's been Golish's assistant head coach and co-offensive
Okay.
coordinator.
That makes a whole lot of sense then.
Yeah.
I think everyone's immediately going to think of Garner. He coached there at Auburn forever. I know he's still got family there. Could you picture a scenario where Golish comes back to Tennessee, takes some guy? I know he took some staffers with him when he left and got that head coaching job, but could that be a possibility this time around as well?
Well, I think you never say never. And I think the biggest question for Alex Golish right now that I have is who's going to be his defensive coordinator? There's some talk that, they might try to keep DJ Durkin as their coordinator there. I don't know how that works. Durkin wanted the job. I'm going to tell you, Eric, there were a lot of people thought last night that Durkin was getting that job. This decision to hire Alex Golish caught a lot of people off guard that cover Auburn because there was a real belief that it was going to be Durkin. And if you watched any of the Iron Bowl broadcasts, you certainly thought it was going to be Durkin too, by the way they were talking him up in that broadcast. They certainly had an inkling. They thought that was the direction it was going. So I think it starts there, first of all. Who's going to be the coordinator? There's a lot of reports out that it went south with John Summerall as a candidate at Auburn because of some of the qualifiers that were going to be put on whoever the coach was there on who you had to keep and some things you had to do, from their GM to different things like that as well, that I don't think he was completely on board with. So the question with Golish in that deal is what has he agreed to from a standpoint of is somebody staying or not staying? And I think the defensive coordinator would have a say in who is a part of that staff. We know that he likes Coach Chop. He tried to hire Coach Chop at South Florida. We know there's, Rodney Garner for some personal reasons with family things, as Austin has mentioned. I think there's a thought that he would have interest in Auburn if they had a spot for him. I think first and foremost, it's where is Alex Golish going with his defensive coordinator spot?
Yep, it all starts there. Very rarely do you bring on a defensive line coach before a coordinator.
It's done
that happened here in Tennessee.
It was done at Tennessee. So, I mean, it can happen. Anything can happen. But I'm first and foremost, is he going to retain DJ Durkin? Does Durkin want to stay? Or does Durkin get in play at a smaller school? Does he get in play at Memphis or North Texas or Coastal Carolina or Tulane, whatever? I mean, how bad does he want to be a head coach versus being, a guy who's going to make a lot of money to be a defensive coordinator at the Power 4 level?
Yeah. And when you've been in the business for a long time, sometimes you just know how it goes and it doesn't faze you. But oftentimes it is hard to try to retain somebody who was up for that job and wanted that job, just because it's awkward. And that's why this different scenario, that's why the whole bringing Bobby Petrino back on board at Arkansas was just like, what? Ed Orgeron joining Lane's staff in LSU. I know they go back. They were on, he was on his staff here at Tennessee, but that's just, it's got to be a weird feeling. So I think it'd be Alex Golish's best interest to keep DJ Durkin if he wanted to stay. Now, does he want to? Who knows? But certainly you got to make that decision first and foremost.
Hey, let's get Matthew's question in here about with games won and lost in the margins, where does Tennessee need to improve? To me, it seems like our alignment has been awful. We saw edge rushers upfield a lot, leaving lanes open. You're right. It is about the margins, and it's about the small margins. And I think when you do a deep dive and assessment, if you're Josh Heupel, but besides getting more dudes, where do you need to improve? Game day. What do you got to do a better job on game day? Eric, you mentioned the management stuff earlier in terms of clock management, game management. I think Tennessee's got to play a cleaner brand of football. They can't be sloppy. Okay, but turnovers are going to happen. Penalties are going to happen. But the communication issues, some of the alignment issues that we've seen, some of those mistakes. But because of what Matthew's saying and how small the margins are, meaning, it's a play here or there or one little thing. Just think about what the 5-yard penalty did for you after the turnover against Georgia. That's such a self-inflicted wound there. It changed the whole landscape of that drive. You had a bad snap at Alabama after the fumble that changed everything there. Tennessee just can't get away with being sloppy because I just don't think you're going to find a lot of games in this league where you're just outscoring people, 42-28 on a regular basis. Particularly as you add another conference game in there with one less open date week, you're going to have to be clean, play less sloppy.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee was sloppy in a lot of regards back in 2022, but it just didn't matter.
It didn't matter. Yeah, it totally didn't matter. I mean, people aren't going to let you do that on a regular. They did it more this year than they've done it in the last couple of years. So it's still there, but it's not going to be, I don't think, like we ever saw it, or I don't think we're ever going to see it again like we saw it in 22.
Brent, this poster wants to know what the atmosphere and body language was like down on the sideline. I would imagine that, as the game went along, obviously you're losing. It's probably not perfect, but what was the environment like that down there as Tennessee was trying to get back in it in the second half?
I mean, frustration, some disappointment, but here's the thing. I saw the post on the GQ earlier today, and I'm not trying to be mean or whatever, but I mean, we live in a different world, man. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt, because for some people it clearly hurts a lot. For some people, their body language suggests it doesn't hurt as much. That's the world we live in. I still think it's weird that you go out after you get beat and you pose for a picture with a friend of yours in a uniform who just beat your brains in, and you want to take a picture with him.
Yeah.
I think NFL jersey swaps are bizarre. I mean, I do. I mean, I love my man Tim Priest. Tim Priest nobody was madder than Tim Priest at the post-game handshake. Like, dude, they just kicked your butt. Go to the locker room. Like, what are you hanging out there, chewing the fat with somebody? Like, call them on the phone later. You just got beat. Get in the locker room and move on. So I think there's always going to be some of that body language stuff that people look at from the stands and go, man, this team doesn't care, or this guy doesn't care, that guy doesn't care. I think for the most part, I mean, David Sanders was clearly frustrated, late in that game with some of their inabilities to do things. There were a lot of guys like that. I mean, there was also a reality of just they're kicking our rear end, and that's just part of it. That reality was down there as well.
Yeah, you also don't want your team down there, pouting. Like, there's a line there. You're everybody's different. The game's still going on. You want to be engaged. You want to be ready to roll. Go back in there and play. I mean, everybody handles that differently. But also, you don't want 70 guys down there sitting there pouting when the game's still going on. I mean, it's just
and I will say this. I mean, the air got sucked out of that sideline, and what little air was left in the stadium on the Mike Matthews drop. Yeah. And I don't think that was the difference in the game. But, man, the management of that game down the stretch is different if you make that a 3-point game there instead of a 7-point game. I'm not saying Tennessee wins it, because that's not fair to suggest. Tennessee hadn't stopped them all night long. But, I mean, you cut that to 3, and if, Vanderbilt's going to come back and move the football, but you find a way to bow up and hold them to a field goal, that's a 6-point game with 4 minutes to play, and you're getting a kickoff, it's a whole different feeling. That was the one that ended it right there. When they didn't get 7 on that drive, man, it sucked the life out of everything at that point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the biggest call/play of the game was the roughing the passer, and I wholeheartedly agree when that touchdown pass was dropped. I mean, it was finito, over, done.
Here's the third play that was crucial. Tennessee's up 21-14. They get to stop after the holding penalties forced the punt. Tennessee gets 9 yards on the Bishop completion, and they get the pass interference penalty that turns that from what would have been 3rd and 1 to 2nd and 23 and a punt. Tennessee had been in a decent rhythm offensively. I mean, what does that game look like if it's 28-14 instead of 21-14? You punt it back to them, and they win the middle 8 on you there. Not saying you win the game there, but that was a drive where you felt like, man, you got to capitalize and get points on this deal, because you don't know how many stops you're going to get. But if you can get 2 scores in front of them and they're playing catch up the rest of the game, can you sort of hold them off that way? That was a big point in the game too. That would be my third play of the game. That was just critical.
We got Matt Ray standing by. I do want to get to one more question first, because I think it's a good one. I think it's timely. Obviously, not timely. I guess the portal opens in a month, but if Aguilar isn't able to come back, and we'll see how this whole legal process plays out, and Tennessee should be preparing, and I know they are, as if he can't, should Tennessee roll the dice, bring in a Dylan Raiola for next year, or should they just play the freshman quarterback? Again, this is going to be one of the biggest questions asked throughout the month of December. What will their process be like quarterback-wise if Aguilar's out of the picture? You've got a 5-star, really highly rated prospect coming in, Faison Brandon, everybody's super excited about. You got George McIntyre on campus. We'll see what Jake Merklinger wants to do. But given the success with portal quarterbacks, specifically here at Tennessee as well, and seeing what you just did with Joey Aguilar in like 2 months before the season started, what say you in terms of how they handle that?
Well, I wouldn't bring in Dylan Raiola because what's he done? I mean,
Yeah, just in general, I guess not. I'm with you on the quarterback
okay.
given in the season.
I thought he was asking specifically about Raiola, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a really, really gutsy decision, I guess is maybe the best way to put it, to say in a year that's going to, I mean, listen, the narrative on Josh Heupel is different, and it's going to be different for the next 8 months. Okay. And listen, I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. I'm not saying any of those things, but the reality is, because of what you did this year, because of the way this regular season ended, there are more people with questions about Josh Heupel than there has been in any offseason since he's been here. And that's not making some hot take crazy statement. But with that being the narrative, do you feel comfortable going into 26 and resting your season on those 2 young quarterbacks? Or do you spend money and go get a proven commodity? And if it costs you one of those young quarterbacks, maybe it costs you one of those young quarterbacks. That's a $9 million decision is what that is. And you got to wear your big boy britches, and you got to make that decision. As you do your self-evaluation of where you're at, what do you need moving forward? You know what you have in those quarterbacks. You should know what you think you can get out of those quarterbacks or what you can't get. You know the rest of the offensive pieces you have coming back. What do you need to not be 8-4 next year or worse? What do you need to put yourself in contention to win games at home against a more difficult schedule? That is a $9 million decision, and I don't make $9 million a year to make that decision. Matt Ray now, that's in Matt Ray's category.
Yeah.
That's in Matt Ray's payroll, so maybe he can answer that question better than me. I think it's a really fascinating topic, and it's going to be a really interesting decision by Josh Heupel in terms of what he does with his quarterbacks.
Yeah, like Brent said, I mean, I know what I would do in this situation, but you're the one making $9 million, Matt. So what would you do? What's your take on this whole? And again, this is something we'll talk about all throughout the month of December. But what's your take on this?
It's going to be one of the biggest talking points of the offseason, right? What's Tennessee going to do there? When's Joey Aguilar going to get an answer about this lawsuit that he's attached to? Does he want to come back? Does he not want to come back? There's so many things that are going to factor into this. But I think Brent hit the nail on the head. Tennessee should know what they have in George McIntyre. It's not like Faison Brandon just committed to you 2 months ago or coming out of summer official visits. He committed to you 16, 17 months ago. He's been committed for well over a year. You know what you should have in those young guys. And it's a decision that you have to make. It's probably not going to be easy because you run the risk of running one of them off. But, you have to put your big boy pants on and you have to go make that decision, because now the way you finish this season out, in my opinion, this offseason has become just as important as what this regular season was to you, if not more so important. In the decisions that you make, it's really going to determine where you go as the future of this program goes.
No doubt. And other things to consider. And
you have to have one more quarterback on your roster.
You have to.
Now, the question is, do you go spend the money to try to go get an immediate starter, or are you going for a depth piece? And here's the thing. You can't wait through spring practice and figure out what you got. You got to make that decision over the course of the next month, seeing these guys in bowl prep, being ready to go when the portal window opens in January. The timeline for making the decision is not a long one.
No, it's not. And, roster retention, those conversations will be ongoing, obviously, but you're bringing back tons of talent at wide receiver and adding to it. You're bringing back a lot of offensive linemen. You're bringing back, I would assume, at least 2 guys at running back that's got a whole lot of experience. We'll see if any of those guys want to look elsewhere. What you're bringing back offensively, it's pretty good. And so, again, that kind of just adds fuel to that fire, that conversation. Matt Ray, let's talk recruiting, man. National Signing Day in a couple of days. Tennessee, most of the hay's in the barn, 23 commits, obviously. They held 5 official visitors over the weekend. Some of the highlights, we can ask you specifically about some of those guys, but some of the highlights from over the weekend is Tennessee's trying to finish out this class here on Wednesday.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee's trying to finish this class out here on Wednesday, make sure that everything goes smoothly to the finish line. Brought in some guys that they haven't really had a chance to get to campus. Jalen Thomas, the JUCO defensive lineman, was in town again. He was here for Oklahoma game. Tennessee had offered him before that. They've continued to have good dialogue with him. We'll see where things go there. I think Tennessee's done a nice job with him. You know, I also think at this time of the year, as we're talking about all of these guys, right now there's a pecking order of sorts, behind the scenes there. And I think Tennessee would love to add an interior defensive lineman, and they would love to add a defensive end type guy. They've recruited J.J. Finch and Jordan Carter for a long time. And those two are two of the primary focuses here heading into signing day. Carter was at Auburn this weekend. He went back to Auburn despite them not having a head coach because of his belief in DJ Durkin, who ultimately didn't get the job there. Would DJ Durkin be retained by Alex Golish? We'll see, kind of what goes into that. But he's approached this as an old school recruitment. He's given Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and Auburn all three a chance since he decommitted from Texas A&M. So we'll kind of see where things go. I think Tennessee has continued to do a really nice job of recruiting him down the stretch here. And, they're going to have to continue pushing this thing into Wednesday to secure his signature. And then from there, if Jordan Carter ends up going somewhere else, then I think Tennessee's attention turns up for a guy like Carter Gooden even more. I think, Tennessee got him here for the first time, was really impressed by him physically, measured in, I think, around 6'4.5", 252 pounds, 34-inch arms. So they were not, I don't think they were necessarily expecting those measurements. But he's a guy that's been committed to UCLA for a long time. He's continuing to give UCLA a chance, even though they don't have a head coach. He's hearing a lot from Vanderbilt. I would probably give Vanderbilt the edge right now coming out of the weekend, but we'll kind of see, again, where things go with Jordan Carter and how hard Tennessee continues to push there. And then Naquavion Simmons, a guy that has just started to catch some momentum here at the end of the cycle, played 8-man football before switching over and playing 11-man football at Carver High School down in Georgia for Jarvis Jones this fall. You still have to build depth in this recruiting world. It's hard to do now, right? It's really hard to do when there's so much parity being created. Schools can make runs at guys that, they typically wouldn't be able to land, where teams like Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama can stack that depth. Naquavion Simmons is a guy that physically meets the mold. And I think, it would be interesting to see what Tennessee does with him moving forward as they hosted him on an official visit this weekend.
And Matt, I'm curious, big picture, as you rattled through those guys there, but I'm wondering, with the coaching news that occurred on Sunday with Kiffin, with Golish, Arkansas making a hire, Ole Miss with a surprise promotion that they made, Florida making a hire, they got essentially 48 hours to try to do something with a class.
Yep.
Do those coaches just punt on this class? Do you think it's realistic? Because I'm wondering about Golish. I mean, how many people can Golish call that he was recruiting that were SEC athletes, because he was recruiting a different level? Yep. Same for John Summerall. Same for Memphis going to Arkansas. I'm wondering, what did they do with this class? And could this be a wild Wednesday with some crazy flips to some of these new schools, because they're just going to try to throw some money at some high school kids, or do they just go all portal here in year one?
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that too. I mean, I think you can very easily make the case that they go all portal here in year one. But I mean, I also think, like, you look at Alex Golish, like you said, he's not recruited a lot of guys that are SEC level at USF. So I think the guys that he does believe that they can take and potentially develop and hold on to, an Iverson Garcia, who was, recruited by a school like Tennessee for a while, and other schools reached out. Like, you got to get on the phone with a guy like that. That's probably a pretty easy conversation. And then you got to try to maintain what is there that you want from the high school ranks that the previous staff had in front of you. Like, Auburn, Golish has already met with Shadarius Tootle, the linebacker there. I'm sure he's already probably been on the phone with Jace Matthews, some of those key pieces off on each side of the football. We've seen videos of Lane Kiffin on social media, met with Lamar Brown today.
Lane Kiffin on social media? Never heard of
no kidding. Number one player in the country, able to get him over to campus right here before this dead period. So I think a lot of it has to be around trying to quickly retain those guys that you want. Maybe see if there's guys I think it's a lot easier for Lane because he was recruiting guys still, at that level. But with Silverfield and with Golish and with Summerall, I think you just got to try to maintain and look toward the portal.
Here's my question. Two guys, and you already touched on one, and maybe, like you said, it's an easy conversation. Iverson Garcia right here in the backyard of Powell High School. Tennessee likes him. Tennessee's brought him onto campus a ton of times. But he was kind of USF through and through, right? Because they made him a priority.
Yep.
Is it as simple as he's going to go to Auburn now? Does Tennessee have anything there, down the stretch? And then secondly, again, staff's out, new staff and everything, but it's Lane Kiffin walking in LSU. A lot of people wondering about Tristan Keys. Could that change anything in terms of, he was previously committed to LSU before flipping?
Yeah, so with Garcia, I'm intrigued by that. I think Alex Golish is going to take a number of his current staff, especially support staff, with him to Auburn. Those guys have done a really good job as well as anybody inside that program of making Iverson Garcia feel welcome, feel like he's wanted there. Like you said, Tennessee got him over here to start the fall. It felt like every time there was a game, Iverson Garcia was here, and that one felt inevitable until all of a sudden they convinced him, hey, just come down here to South Florida one more time. Just come down here and see us. And they were able to ease the tension. They got through that. They weathered the storm. Alex Golish was huge in that. He was on the phone with Iverson Garcia all the time. So, yeah, I think it might be as simple as, hey, here's the phone call or, we want you down here. But, again, you never know. You never know what their approach is going to be there. But, yeah, I think if Alex Golish wants Iverson Garcia at Auburn, which would not surprise me at all, then I think it's, probably pretty simple to that point. With Tristan Keys, I think, that's obviously a question that's going to get asked. You're talking about a 5-star that was, a few weeks ago rated as the number one wide receiver in the country. And it's always kind of been assumed that his recruitment would go down to the finish line. I don't know how much, even being a Mississippi kid, that he ever really entertained Ole Miss. During the early stages of that recruitment, he's been really good with Tennessee. He's had really, really good dialogue with Tennessee. Throughout the weekend, I talked to him earlier in the week. He's really fired up to get out here and get to work. It feels like in my conversations with him, his relationship with Kelsey Pope has just continued to build. And it's really not even so much of the recruitment piece anymore. It's the, hey, man, you can come in here and make an impact. Look at what we're doing with these 3 guys. We got 3 receivers over 700 yards. Look at what you can do if you come in here early, you put this work in. And I think that's really starting to resonate with him, and it's something that he's getting super excited about. Again, you never say never, because schools can throw a lot of cash around and try to make a big splash. But I think right now I don't have a lot of concern with Tristan Keys.
Last one for me, Brent. Celeste Moa. Yeah, he took that visit to Michigan, and I know he was going to be in the area to see his brother, but 3 days away from signing day. What's the update there?
Yeah, so with Celeste Moa, I talked to him earlier this afternoon. He told me he's excited to sign with Tennessee once the signing period opens. Again, another one of those deals, elite athlete, two-way player. Michigan was kind of in this one early, and you just didn't hear a lot about them come decision time for Celeste Moa. But, they've continued to pluck away. He went up there. He told me it was a really cool experience seeing that game, seeing it in the snow, just being able to take all that in. He's continued to have good dialogue with the Tennessee staff throughout the weekend. Michigan's still recruiting him on the defensive side of the football. Tennessee has pushed him hard on the offensive side of the football with hey, if you get here and you don't like it, flip the defense and give safety a try. But I think that he likes that a pretty good bit. So we'll kind of see where things shake out with him over the next 48 hours. But, in my conversation with him earlier in the day, he was looking to sign with Tennessee later in the week on Wednesday.
Matt, I mean, great stuff, obviously, as always. So appreciate the insight for everybody there. I guess my question to you as we go out the door here, my last one would be, is there any one or two things that you have earmarked that you're watching on Wednesday, aside from what you just said with Moa and, you talked about keys, but is there anything else that you have kind of earmarked that you're really going to be watching closely when you start the day on Wednesday?
Yeah, I'm going to be paying attention to JJ Finch. I think Jordan Carter will probably finalize some plans for when he's going to announce something on Wednesday, because he's going to pick a hat probably off a table or announce it in some fashion. He's had signing day circled for some time. JJ Finch has just been so quiet throughout this process. He's a really, really good football player that's underrated, in my opinion, but he's just been so low key in the way that he's done everything, even when he snuck back down here to Tennessee for the Oklahoma game. So I'm certainly going to, be paying attention to what is coming out of JJ Finch's camp early on Wednesday, and just kind of see where things are going there.
Great stuff as always there from Matt Ray. Follow his work and Austin Price and all of our work over at Volquest.com. A lot of stuff coming up right now. Obviously, the regular season's over. We'll find out where Tennessee's going to a bowl. That'll be next Sunday. National Signing Day is coming up on Wednesday. So a lot of this stuff Matt's been talking about. Constant updates over there on the General's Quarters. Right now, basketball season's happening, both Lady Vols and men's hoops. Right now, we got an incredible deal happening for the Cyber Monday coming up tomorrow. 50% off for new subscribers only, plus a year subscription to The Athletic. Awesome stuff happening right now over at Volquest.com. Take advantage of the best deal of the year. It can be an early stocking stuffer for that Tennessee fan in your life or for yourself. A lot of people watching and listening that aren't members of the site, come join us. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We thank you, but there's a lot more meat on that bone. So take advantage of this deal. Our best deal of the year, Cyber Monday deal. You can do it right now, tomorrow as well, at Volquest.com. As always, thank you guys for tuning in with us all season long. This will be the final Rockets Out Rewind of the regular season. We'll be back. We'll be talking bowl destinations and more throughout the month of December, but we will not be meeting here next Sunday night. But I appreciate you guys for hanging out with us each and every Sunday night. Big thanks to our sponsors over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP for being a part of the show. If you have a need for them, a free consultation, 423-245-4185. You can check them out online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com as well. For Brent Hubbs, Matt Ray, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys as always. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. This has been the Rockets Out Rewind.